Hi, I'm Tyler Sia, and this is my company analysis of advanced micro devices. My goal for this project was to choose a random stock in the S&P 500 and find out whether at this point in time, which is April 2020, it is a good investment for you as an investor. The stock that I've chosen, as I said before, was Advanced Micro Devices, which has a ticker symbol of AMD. So a little bit of history about the company. AMD was first introduced in 1969 by this guy right here, Jerry Sanders, who was an electrical engineer, and the company now has 10,000 employees today. They're a company that's based on high performance graphics, high performance computer technology, and they mainly focus on that stuff for gamers, people who do virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. They also are in the semiconductor industry. A little bit about the semiconductor industry. It has a rank of 37 out of 95 on Value Line, and their sales were down in 2019 by about 12.1%. But as you can see from this chart over here, is that they were way higher in 2018, and even their projections for the next couple of years isn't going to be as high as that. And these stocks are very volatile and usually very risky, but that being said, they have potential upside because these parts are in high demand in the recent years and they just continue to make better and better products. Some of AMD's main competitors include Intel and Nvidia, who are also in the semiconductor industry. And Intel and AMD have been competing for around 50 years, which is a very long time. And Intel has kind of outperformed AMD, but in the last couple of years, AMD has really closed the gap due to some of the stuff that they've been coming out with and really advancing the technology. NVIDIA mainly focuses on artificial intelligence, but still competes with AMD directly, but only with a few products. So another thing that I wanted to point out, which is actually directly from the Value Line page, is how AMD ranks amongst some of their competitors and what they've been doing. And their safety rank comes in at a 4, and NVIDIA is over here at a 3, and Intel is a number 1. And their financial strength is a B+, which related to their main peers, which Intel is up here and NVIDIA is also an A rating. They are a little bit behind, and definitely in the industry rank, they are also a little bit behind. But their total sales have been on the rise from 2017, 2018 to 2019. And another thing that I wanted to point out was that they also have been getting rid of a lot of long-term debt over the past couple of years, and even with a huge decrease in long-term debt from 2018 to 2019. First thing that I want to talk about in their annual report is their letter to shareholders. And Lisa Su, the CEO of the company, tried to focus on the returns they've been seeing since she took over as CEO in 2014. And so in 2016 they had revenues of 4.3 billion, and in 2019 they have gone up to revenues of 6.7 billion. And in 2016 they had a net loss of 498 million, and in 2019 they have a net income of 341 million. The next thing I wanted to look back and see was their 5-year long-term debt numbers, and in 2015 they had $2 billion of outstanding long-term debt, and they've been able to cut that back substantially to only being $643 million in long-term debt in 2019. The next thing was their earnings per share, and in 2015 they actually had a loss per share of 84 cents, and they hit their highest numbers in 2018 with an earnings per share of 34 cents. Another thing in their annual report that I wanted to focus on was their operating activities. They've seen a substantial increase in operating activities from 2018 to 2019, and you usually see a substantial increase in that when a company gets rid of a lot of liabilities and adds more free cash and more liquid assets. First financial report I went over was the one directly from Value Line, and Value Line talks about how they expect AMD to have a 20% increase in revenues this year and reach numbers of 8.25 billion. And they say it's due to their the new processors that they came out with, which they also stress will need to do well for them to reach those numbers. They also increased what they think their earnings per share will be, and they had an earnings per share of 34 cents in 2018, and Value Line estimates that in 2020 they will see an 85 cents per share. But the next financial report I talked about was from Standard and Poor's, and it was made on February 21st, 2020, and they upgraded AMD to a BB based on their reduction of debt. They also went into a little bit of detail and talked about how they need to sell through their products and get rid of inventory if they want to get back to double-digit profits, just like the Value Line report. And they also said that with 1.5 billion in free cash now, they that investors should want to see a lot of that get reinvested into research and development. The next financial report I talked about was from New Constructs, and it was straight from the Business Insights Global on the FDU page. And they suggested that investors strongly stay away from AMD because their market value exceeds their company's historical performance. And they're also trading way higher than most of these financial news companies think that they can get to. Okay, so the first article I wanted to talk about was from the Wall Street Journal, and it was published on January 8th, 2020. It goes over the trade show that AMD was recently involved in and talks about their 7 nanometer production processor that's considered the best in its class. It also confirmed that their new chips will be in the PlayStation and Xbox, which is a huge deal, and AMD finished 2019 up 148%, which made them the top gainer in the S&P 500. And this article also expects revenues to increase by 28%. The next article I went over was from CNN Business News, and it talks about Lisa Su and how she took over the company in 2014 when they were almost about to go bankrupt. And she mainly goes over that a lot of these products take about 3 to 5 years to develop, and it's a hard business to be in because you have to plan 3 to 5 years ahead. And then on top of that, you also have to beat what competitors have been working on. And the article also mentions how Intel has given them a huge opportunity here by falling off in the past couple years. This last article from Yahoo Finance was published on April 15th, and it goes over what they expect for their first quarter earnings. And even though COVID-19 has really hurt the market, AMD has generally been trading higher. But that's due to people expecting this to be a very good earnings. Their projected net sales of 1.78 billion, which is up 38% from last year's first quarter. In their latest press release on April 14, 2020, they talk about their EPYC processors that could get up to 500 megahertz of additional base frequency. These CPUs are definitely selling at higher margins than AMD has seen before, as they range from $2,000 to $3,000. And since April 13th to April 16th, their stock has already gone up 17%. But that could also be due to the earnings report, like I said before. This right here is AMD's stock price over the past 5 years. And as you can see, they were worth less than $10 for a long time before this, and have really just seen major gains in the past couple of years, like mainly the past three and a half years. This chart right here is AMD versus their main competitors in the past 5 years, and it's a percentage chart, so it shows the percent return since 2015. And AMD is actually at the top of this list with almost a 2,000% gain in the past 5 years. But if you go back 10 years, AMD is right in the middle, and NVIDIA really took off in 2016 and has been at a 2,000% gain from the past 10 years. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was their insider trading. And as you could see, a lot of their last trades have just been sales from their higher up executives, because they are trading at a very high premium right now, and most people don't think they are worth over $60 a share. Here is the top management compensation, and as you can see, Lisa Su who's the CEO. She earns a base salary of $1 million, but she has a ton of stock awards and a ton riding on the market, which I think is important to look at because that will make her really want the market to do well. Next thing that I wanted to talk about was AMD's price to earnings ratio compared to its competitors. And as you can see, AMD has the highest price to earnings ratio, which I don't necessarily think is good. And over time, they will need to prove themselves to make people really pay for their stock at $60 a piece so that they could push through to that next point. Another thing that I wanted to go over was their dividend yields, and AMD does not provide a dividend, whereas to their competitors, NVIDIA provides a 0.23% dividend and Intel provides a 2.24% dividend. AMD's bond ratings are also pretty low. Moody's has them as a Ba2, and on the S&P they're a BB minus, and NVIDIA and Intel are both in the A range for both websites. AMD's capital structure is built a little bit differently. They like to put on a lot of long-term debt and really do a lot of research and development to make the best products and try to come out with the best stuff and beat their competitors. So they generally take on a lot of long-term debt and focus on paying it off over a period of time. And their return on equity, their numbers have been pretty good. They went up pretty big in 2018 and sort of came down a little bit. So in this slide, I talk about AMD's EPS, DPS, and book value per share and how it relates to their competitors. And as you can see, they have pretty good estimates coming in for the whole sector. But one thing that I wanted to point out was that their estimations from 2020 to 2021, they're looking at a 55% gain in their book value as compared to NVIDIA's 27% gain and Intel's only 5% gain. So in this slide, I talked a little bit about their response to COVID-19, and I wanted to just take some stuff from this article and show that AMD stock declined by over 20% since February 1st after the WHO declared a global health emergency, and they've been in direct correlation with the S&P 500, which has declined by almost 20% and even hit down 28% since February 1st. This is a chart, though, of a month before this article was written and what they are at now. And as you can see, AMD has sort of been able to get back to where they were, and it's even outperforming the S&P 500 to this date. So this article off of AMD's website from April 15, 2020 talks about what Lisa Su had to say, the CEO of the company, about how AMD has been affected by the coronavirus. And they said that they currently have minimal disruption due to the coronavirus and that they're doing a good job protecting their workforce, and they're doing a lot of screening, temperature checks, and have a lot of social distancing rules. But one thing that needs to be said is that they get a lot of stuff shipped in from a Taiwanese company, and if those travel restrictions get implemented, then AMD could see great effects. A global and political risk for AMD is that getting all this stuff shipped from a Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturer could lead to problems with the trade war that has been going on. And people don't know if they will see effects based on the trade rules that might come into act after all this coronavirus stuff is figured out. My analysis of AMD's past performance and future prospects starts off with, in their past performance, the semiconductor industry has not done that well, but has been on a huge rise in the past 5 years. And also, AMD has trailed their competitors in the past, and the semiconductor industry has been always seen as very risky. Some future prospects that AMD has is that they've been making new products, and they're expected to come out with 20 new products this year. They've also been at the top of these 5-year gains that their industry has seen, and they have a new CEO since 2014 who's been doing very good work and continues to plan on doing that. So the last question for this project was, would I buy the stock myself? And AMD is worth around $55 a share right now, which I don't think that I would buy AMD for $55 a share, but I also don't think that rules AMD out. I think I would buy AMD for $30 to $35 a share, and I think that they can get back down there in recent times because they are a very volatile stock. But that concludes my presentation, and thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.